My friends, something is potentially about to change at Manchester United, is probably close to what Ruben Amorim said when he was passing this message on to his players. Ruben Amorim has hinted to his players that he may be changing the system away from the 3-4-3 and into a new 4-3-3, a shape which United have apparently been using a lot in training over the past week or so. So the question is, how would that change actually look, and how would United set up? Now, first things first, we are going to be talking a lot about formation and shape today, but we must always remember it's not necessarily the most important thing. Shape is great for looking at the starting point of a team, but it doesn't affect always the way that you play. You can press high in a 3-4-3, or you could sit low in a block in a 4-4-1-1, for example. So formation doesn't dictate absolutely everything. However, what it does do is it changes the type of players that you've got on the pitch. When Manchester United line up in a 3-4-3 like this, what we have often seen is 5 defenders. Not always, of course. Sometimes Ahmad plays as a right wing back. He's a really good option for us. He is a more attacking player. But sometimes United are off balance. We often play with 2 fullbacks on the left, 2 wingers on the right, only 2 central midfielders, and the team feels like it doesn't make too much sense. If we shift to more of a 4-3-3, which we may apparently be about to do, it feels like United go into a bit more of a balanced shape, because suddenly we've got a winger on each side, we've got a fullback on each side, we've got 3 central midfielders like the rest of the league, and we've got 2 centre-backs and of course a striker. Now again, this doesn't immediately fix everything, but it's worth pointing out it just immediately allows you to get different types of players on the pitch. Basically what we're doing by changing this shape is exchanging a defender for an extra midfielder, which in my opinion is always going to make you tactically that little bit more flexible. So what we need to do is anticipate how that may actually look. And I sort of picture a 4-3-3 looking something like this. Of course, currently United have injuries and several players about to head off for the African Cup of Nations. Ironically, we are about to potentially use a system with wingers just as we are losing our 2 wingers, which isn't ideal. It means that immediately the balance isn't perfect for United, but I think we can see some dynamics here and how they might actually work. We'll start off on the ball, playing from the first phase. Manchester United immediately in a 4-3-3 probably look more natural in this shape because 2 centre-backs split either side of the keeper, 2 full-backs go wide, and 2 midfielders drop into the first phase. So no De Ligt or Maguire playing in this role. It just makes sense immediately. That first thing is a way more natural structure for United. As we move forward, I think the great thing here is that Ruben Amorim would have more flexibility and more options, which is going to help him as a manager. It would help him to be more tactically advanced, which is what we want to see. For example, he could build possession in a back 4, like we've seen at times this season, United shifting to this sort of shape. But also, if he wants to, he can still switch to a back 3, but we can achieve that shape in more different ways. For example, Diogo Dalot from right back could drop a little bit deeper, Lenny Yoro could move across, Lisandro Martinez could move across, and Shaw could fly forward. This would allow us to build up in a very familiar possession shape, which Amorim loves to use. However, we can make it more unpredictable because we've got that license to swing the back 4 round. In the next moment, Dalot could fly forward on the overlap, Yoro could move to the right, Lisandro Martinez could go to the middle, and now Shaw could play on the left. So again, it would allow Ruben Amorim to achieve similar shapes to what he's done before, but doing so in a much more unpredictable manner, which for me is the most important thing with this potential formation switch. I think it makes United less predictable. Of course, the obvious thing we get here is a midfield 3, something that we've been asking for quite a long time, simply because so many teams in the Premier League use at least 3 central midfielders. United have only been using 2, and that has often left us a little bit overwhelmed in the middle of the park, and also just lacking a profile. It's difficult to play 2 midfielders and get every attribute that you want in a football team. Having a third midfielder just makes it that little bit easier. Kobbie Mainoo, for example, could be that connection midfielder. You've got Bruno Fernandes's creativity, Casemiro's destroying tendencies plus his long passing range. Now you add in that little dribbling midfielder, someone who can receive under pressure and play in tight spaces. That just feels like it makes more sense. And I think it opens up potential for wide dynamics, which Ruben Amorim is a big fan of. He loves to see his wide players combining. And I think down the left, there could be something quite nice here. Let's say on this occasion, Dalot plays a little bit deeper, he hugs into a back 3, Luke Shaw could fly forward, Cunha could come inside, and then Kobbie Mainoo could get near him. I can picture those 3 as a trio working really nicely together and all sort of getting into their best zones. Luke Shaw is a good, strong, overlapping fullback who can cross into the box, that's lovely, but it also allows Cunha the license to roam from position. Sometimes he can pick the ball up wide and come inside, or he can start in this central position where he loves to play and carry with the ball. And then we've also got Kobbie Mainoo nearby, who can join in those rotations. And this is what I would like to see from United. We've seen it recently, to be fair. More rotations down the left, and I think this formation would allow something similar. We'd also have a lot of options down the right, and Diogo Dalot could really come into his own, because as a fullback, he's extremely versatile. He can play tucked into the back three, as we've already seen. He can overlap to a decent level. He's still not an amazing crosser and never will be, but he can also invert into midfield. And in terms of the right side dynamic, that could work really nicely. Now, unfortunately, for now, we would be stuck with someone like Mount on the right wing, unless we want to play Shea Lacey, which is a possibility for us. But of course, after the African Cup of Nations, we'll have the likes of Mbeumo and Amad returning, which could be really exciting for this position. But for now, I think Mount is the sort of player who is intelligent enough. We've seen him playing very wide on the left in recent weeks, and I think he can do something similar from the right-hand side. Because I think he's intelligent, I think Bruno's intelligent, and I think Dalot is as well, with his versatility. We could see Dalot flying around on the overlap. That means Bruno can still drop into midfield and pick up the ball if he wants, but also he can move forward and create in the final third, which is what we want to see. In those moments, Kobe could play a little bit deeper, for example. I think what this shift would allow us to do, and allow Ruben Amorim to do, is stick with so many of his principles, which is good for a manager to do, to have that strong core of principles. He can still maintain those. He can build possession in a back three. He can build up in a double pivot if he wants to. He can have lots of wide rotations and lots of wide dynamics. He can put that emphasis on this wide play while still getting better attacking profiles in the front five. I think it's an opportunity for Ruben Amorim to really enhance his attributes as a manager. Now, I think where we may see the best improvement if we were to change shape is actually off the ball, which isn't what many of us are talking about, but I think it works. When we see United in a back five, we have too many players on the back line, right? So if we've got five deep, it means we've got less in these high positions, which makes it more difficult to get pressure on the ball. If we only have four defenders, that means we've got one extra player further forward, which should, in theory, make pressing high just that little bit easier. I think it would be more obvious who is meant to follow who. We often see gaps between our wing-backs and wide centre-backs. Well, now they're removed because we have a full-back more naturally playing that position. There's a few different ways that United could press. We could lock on in a 4-3-3 with the idea of Sesko forcing the opposition one way, and then we could lock on over to that side and be aggressive in man-to-man fashion, pressing over there. We could shift to a 4-4-2. Bruno Fernandes could go further forward alongside Benjamin Sesko. And this is something that Amorim often speaks about. And again, it's why formation isn't the most important thing, because your formation can be so rotational. United's 3-4-3 can go into a 4-4-2, as can this shape. And I just feel in this shape, it feels a little bit more natural. And the reason for that is because there isn't that swing backwards. Normally, if we play, for example, let's imagine this is Amad playing as a right wing back. Sometimes United do this, right? We move to a 4-4-2 out of possession. But as the ball gets moved, our wing-back has that defensive tendency in his mind to drop into a back five, and United become passive. If we now swap that and actually just play as a typical 4-3-3 into a 4-4-2, I think the roles are a lot easier. I don't think the players have that temptation to drop off so much, and I think it makes United more compact. And it still means, as we drop deeper and lower into our block, if we wanted to, we could drop Bruno Fernandes all the way deep and play with three in the middle. Kobe and Bruno could sort of cover the ground whilst Casemiro sweeps behind them. Or, again, we could go to a very passive 4-4-1-1. If Ruben Amorim still wants to be passive off the ball, he could do it. Again, for me, I think it's about this system having more midfield profiles, which again gives him that freedom to try different things with his principles. Ruben Amorim doesn't have to completely change, he's just tinkering a little bit. Now, the final thing to talk about is United potentially using this shape with everyone fit and available, and, you know, the likes of Mbeumo and Amad back from the African Cup of Nations. Now, I don't know exactly how this would line up, because now United need a winger on both sides, on the left and the right, but we have two right wingers, Mbeumo and Amad. We sold the likes of Rashford, so we can't use him over here. So, again, I don't think it would be perfect. The 4-3-3 doesn't immediately fix United. We still know we need signings. We need a left-sided attacker, we need a central midfielder, we maybe need more centre-backs, whatever. This doesn't fix everything. But with these players, I think the threat that United can bring suddenly becomes much more balanced. You could go Mbeumo on the left with Amad on the right. We've seen Mbeumo on the left this season. You could swap the two of them. That's very possible. You could go Amad on the right and Mbeumo through the middle, Cunha to the left. You've also got Sesko that you can bring into the team as well. For me, because Amad is now an attacker rather than a wing-back, it adds that element of attacking depth. It gives us more options from the bench. Sesko could be a bench player, or Amad could be a bench player, or Cunha could be a bench player. That introduction from the bench is something that could really help United in a lot of games. It almost adds to our attacking depth. And all of a sudden, I think this team looks dangerous. I think this team looks really dangerous, especially if we put Mbeumo left, which we'd want to change in the future. But that wing threat, the ability to dribble at teams from both sides of the pitch with pace, with trickery, is something that the Old Trafford crowd is desperate to see, right? As United fans, we all want to see this. That pace, speed in the way that we attack. Amorim gets a lot of criticism, sometimes for playing too fast. And I criticise him as well. But I think speed, to a point, is important. United still have to take those moments where we slow down, and I think Kobe could be useful for that. But I like seeing fast football. So a winger on both sides, with a striker, Cunha or Šeško leading the line, could make United a really fun team to watch, while still having that extra element of control with that extra midfielder who has that natural control of games with the tempo with which he plays. We could see Dalot, for example, overlapping down the right, which allows Amad inside. I think it just works for Amad and Mbeumo more because they're not on top of each other. Currently, they have similar instincts, so they play in the same part of the pitch. If we separate them, they can thrive with different profiles around them. Shaw can overlap on the left to allow Mbeumo inside, or Dalot can overlap on the right to allow Amad inside, or however the team may set up. I just think the 4-3-3 base gives us more to work with. Of course, we'd still need a lot of signings. We know that with this United squad anyway, but I think it gives Amorim a chance. Now, I think that last line there was important. It gives Amorim a chance. We've said recently that United are getting points, but we're not that good at many different things. And I said last week, something has to change. Either the manager has to change, like get rid of him, or he himself needs to change something in the way that he's setting up. And this is the way for him to do that. It's not about him completely abandoning his ideas as a football manager. I think he can stick to a lot of those because they have got him far in his career. But some of those can be tinkered as well. But I think this base shape, the 4-3-3, would give Ruben Amorim a platform to set Manchester United up in a lot of different ways depending on the opposition. If we wanted to defend deep, we still could. If we want to press high, we could. If we want to control the ball, we can. Or if we want to play long, we still can. I just think it gives us that greater scope. Now, of course, currently all of this is just a rumour, but it does seem slightly possible. There have been hints there over the past year that change would eventually come, and maybe this is the moment for Amorim to switch to a 4-3-3. Now, as I've said, this doesn't fix everything. Football is more than formations. We've still got the same players, so we still have some of the same squad holes as well. We've also got to remember that it's difficult to play one way for 12 months and then immediately switch for one game. That's very difficult to do. But if given time in the 4-3-3, I think this United squad, with a few additions in the transfer market as well, seriously can become a very good team under Ruben Amorim, which is why I am incredibly excited about this idea. I hope it's not all just a lie and false. Hopefully it's true. If it is, it's exciting, which is why I've got this video out a little bit quicker than normal. I do apologise it hasn't had the same put into it as what it normally would. I found out about this idea about 2 hours ago in the live stream, so this has been a little bit rushed, but I hope you have still enjoyed it. I hope it's been a good watch before kickoff tonight. If you have enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe and get your notifications on. Apart from that, we are finished for today, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.